Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Science fiction, the great teacher, the great inspiration. It helps us see the endless possibilities of life. So let's be inspired together.
Come with me if you want to live.
We are all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon, what's beyond our own shores.
We are not sending out interceptors. We have taken them completely by surprise.
Hey everybody, it's the Commodore. Hope everybody's doing okay out there. So, I have a movie review here that I wanted to discuss. And this goes back a few years. And the only reason why I'm doing a review on this one now is that because I had rented another movie before that called ISS. This movie came up in as a suggestion to watch, which I hadn't seen. In fact, I even forgot about it too because at the time when it was commercially, I wanted to see it, but things just got in the way and I forgot about it, and you know how it goes. Anyway, so all this time goes by and I'm reminded about this movie, so I finally watched it the other night, and so I wanted to talk about it. So yes, the movie is called Life. It was released in 2017, and it starred Jake Gyllenhaal, Ryan Reynolds, Rebecca Ferguson, and it had a budget. I guess they spent $58 million making this. It's a science fiction movie. And it takes place on the ISS space station in, I guess either the near future or modern times, whatever you want to call it. It's not that far into the future, just maybe like a year if you want to call it. And what happens is a space probe comes back to Earth from Mars, and it has soil samples. And the soil samples, apparently they must figure there's potential for some kind of something to find there. So they get this probe into the space station and they take it to a lab and they take the sample out and they start looking at it and everything. They got an exobiologist there looking through the dirt and all that. And they find a multi-cell organism. Well, actually, it was a dormant cell, and then it all of a sudden came to life, and it became a multi-celled organism, and it started to grow. Okay, well, everybody's all excited about it because you could see it looked like a little. At first, it looked like a tiny Venus flytrap, a little bit. It was small like that, and everybody was like, "Oh, they're kind of touching it and everything," and so. On Earth, they decide, this school decides to name this little tiny life form Calvin, and so from that point on, they refer to it as Calvin, and so they examine this thing in the space station because it's a good place to do this safely. That way, there's no danger to Earth. I mean, it's up in space, it's in a station. I mean, how more confined can you get, right? So, anyway, after a while, this thing starts to grow, and they say that it's like a muscle. This thing is sort of like a muscle. It's got neurons and photosensory cells and everything. But what it kind of looks like is like a little jellyfish. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen one, but because when I grew up in Florida, but you know, the jellyfish in the water, they're transparent in areas, but you can kind of see it. Well, that's the way they made this thing look, is sort of like a jellyfish kind of thing. And in a weightless environment, it kind of looks weird because the way it moves, like an angel or something, you know. But anyway, it's very transparent, but you could still see it. And while they're, you know, doing stuff, you know, while it's in the lab, they put their hands in these gloves and stuff to touch it. You know, they try not to, you know, make any physical contact with it. Well, while one of the scientists is doing that, this thing suddenly, you know, stretches and wraps itself around the guy's hand. And he's squeezing it, and pretty soon bones are breaking. The guy's screaming his head off, and he's still squeezing his hand, breaking, you know, incredibly strong. Because it's sort of like a rubber band in a way. I mean, you mean a rubber band, you could stretch and stretch. Well, imagine in reverse doing that. I mean, it's almost endless. You know, yes, it is a muscle, but it's almost endless in how much it can squeeze because of its elasticity. Okay? Well, in order for him to get his hand free, the thing had to crush it, you know, his hand basically to the point where there's nothing for it to grab onto. And that's what happened. He crushed, the thing crushed his hand so much that he was able to just slip right out of the glove inside. So now the thing is dangerous because it's made its first attack on a person. But then this thing also learns how to change its form, sort of like, you know, like Odo on Star Trek, you know, a little bit, but not so much where it can actually look like something else, okay? What it can do is it can take its rubbery, you know, build or whatever you want to call it, and kind of shape it into points and stuff like that, you know, and make stabbing things, you know, like that. And it breaks out of the thing through the glove inside, you know, and just pokes a hole through the glove and then rips the glove open, and now he's out of the cage, basically. So the glove itself was the weak spot that it exploited. Now, knowing these things, they're finding out that this thing is intelligent, okay, because it's learning really quick how to do things. Now that it's, you know, floating around and examining everything, it's like, well, you know, this thing's smart because it's learning its environment and it's learning how to adapt to different things. And what it did after it got free was it went after a test rat that was in a cage and it ate it. And when it ate, it got bigger. You know, so eating food and stuff like that makes this thing get bigger. Okay. So one of the other people on the station, I think there's like 6 or 7 people on the ISS here. One of them decides they have to go in there and get the guy's hand was crushed because when he was so much pain, he kind of passed out, right? You know, from shock, and so he's just floating in there. So he had to go in there to get him out. So they kind of wait till till Calvin is kind of off somewhere, and they try to sneak in there to get the guy out. Well, they do manage to get him out, but the creature finally realizes what was going on, goes over there and grabs the other guy's leg, okay, and is holding him inside the thing. Well, they're not going to let the Calvin get out of that lab. So they shut the door with him in it, and so what Calvin does is he goes into the other crew member inside his mouth and eats the inside of his body and comes out bigger, okay? So so they only made the situation worse because now that he's larger, he's able to do more damage, you know? And they tried to go in there and kill it with fire, but it didn't seem to do anything. So it's like really resistant to heat, extreme heat, you know. And so they just, I guess it was like, you know, they figured out that, you know, even though it looks like a jelly or something like that, it's really pretty tough. It's pretty tough. And I mean, to survive the vacuum of space or whatever, you know, and all that, from Mars on its trip to Earth, I mean, yeah, I mean, the single cell that was dormant wasn't dead, it was just dormant. So it would be very hard to kill. So then all of a sudden the communications is like severed between Earth and the station. Okay. And this is, you know, after what happened to the lab and all that stuff. And they figure out that Calvin must have got out of the ship somehow, outside the ship, and damaged it, you know, a pretty, trying to cut it, you know, because obviously Calvin doesn't want Earth to know that it exists up there and that there's a danger. He's trying to, you know what I'm saying? So it's the intelligence is becoming more apparent now. So one of the other astronauts goes out there to try to fix the goddamn communications antenna, not realizing that Calvin is out there. Okay, I mean, it's broke. They go out there to fix it. They didn't realize Calvin had got out of the ship until that happened. Until they got out there and they realized what happened. So they're trying to fix it. Calvin shows up, goes into this spacesuit. And well, not into it, but basically ruins the inside of the spacesuit somehow, where there's coolant leaking inside the spacesuit, and it's like a watery thing, and it's filling up inside the astronaut's helmet. Well, she tries to figure, well, I can get back into the ship and they could get this thing off of me. But by the time, you know, they got there, I think what happened, the astronaut decided that it was too dangerous to let that thing back into the ship. And so she sacrifices herself outside the ship and then just drowns in her own spacesuit from the coolant. And, you know, then now Calvin is just kind of like floating around in space, not knowing what to do until, you know, the astronauts that are still alive in the station determined that the only way that Calvin could get back in is not the way it got out in the first place, but by going in through one of the thrusters, which to me, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, why would there be like an open area between the inside, you know, of the ship and the thruster? Wouldn't that automatically cause sort of a decompress? I mean, I don't know. It's TV. It's a movie. It's a fucking thing. Okay, so anyway, they determined that was the way Calvin would try to get back into the spaceship, was by going inside through one of the thrusters. So they're sitting there at the control board watching to see if something is going to enter the thrusters, and when they see that it's trying to, they activate the thruster to try to blow it out. Okay. Well, they're never quick enough because the fucking thing is fast, okay? Remember, it's made out of jelly, like whatever the hell it is. So it can move a lot quicker than a guy in a cumbersome spacesuit, all right? And it doesn't really need that much air to survive because it's been out in space where there is no air, and it's still able to live, you know, like they're for hours out there without air, all right? Even though in the movie they suggested it needs oxygen really bad, which is there's a contradiction right there in the story right off the bat. That they say, well, it doesn't need air. Well, yeah, how come every time it comes back in it needs to have air? So I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things about this, you know, the alien itself that kind of contradictory. But that's that aside. During the course of all these activating all the thrusters to keep the damn thing out, they accidentally make the orbit of the whole fucking station put into decay. You know what I'm saying? Now the station is in danger of burning up into the Earth's atmosphere because they're fucking around with the thrusters trying to keep the alien out, and now the whole station's going to burn up in the atmosphere. So, you know, why they didn't think of that beforehand, before they went ahead and started tap dancing all over the fucking engineering panel there to try to blow this thing away. Why nobody said, oh, by the way, you think that's going to push our orbit down a little bit? You know, it's like, you know, none of these scientists / astronauts had that thought, okay? So anyway, they didn't realize until after that they fucked up, okay? And I think that was part of why Calvin was out there in the first place, was to get them to do that in order to bring the whole station down. I think that, you know, it was probably because it knows it could probably survive re-entry. And if he can get the whole station, you know, then he could get down to Earth, which is where it wants to go. Okay. while it's there, it finds its way back inside. So what they ended up doing was sealing off a whole section of the space station. Okay, they haven't fixed the orbit thing yet with the station. Okay, but one of the people that tried to get into the unsealed area, okay, you know, from the sealed area to the unsealed area, didn't get there quick enough, and Calvin grabs his leg and pulls him back inside. They shut the door. Okay, he's stuck in there with the damn alien. Okay, and he's killed. He's killed while he's in there. So now the thing has gotten larger. So they decide that they want to try to trap Calvin inside of an escape pod. Well, they got two, I think, 2 or 3 escape pods, and what they want to do is lure Calvin into one of them. Okay, set that pod out into deep space, and the other one, somebody else can get in the other pod and make it back to Earth. Okay, and report what the hell happened. That means one of them's got to be sacrificed in order to pull that off. So that being one of them's the bait, essentially. And to keep Calvin, to lure Calvin into the area where the pod is, they set up oxygen bottles along the way. Now, this is where it gets weird, because before they said he didn't need oxygen that much, right? But now we got oxygen bottles every 10, 20 feet or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So Calvin's got to follow this trail of oxygen bottles and breathe until it's empty, then go to the next one and breathe. It's like, well, how come all of a sudden now he needs oxygen? He was out in space for hours with no air, and it was able to do all this damage, and now all of a sudden it needs air every 5 feet. You know? Okay, so there was a problem right with that plan. But anyway, that's how they lure him into the capsule, okay, the escape pod, while one of the astronauts is in there setting it to go into deep space. Okay, but he's got to be there in order for that thing to come into there all the way. All right, meanwhile, the other one is going into the other escape pod and heading the hell back home. Okay, so as they, you know, it's kind of pretty horrendous, you know. So Calvin gets in there, they slam the door shut into the pod. There's this fight between him and the alien there, Calvin, and there's an oxygen bottle there, and so the alien decides to grab the air and start breathing it. Well, while it's breathing the air coming out of the bottle, the astronaut is manually piloting the escape pod out into deep space and holding it on that course to get out of Earth's orbit. The other one's heading back to Earth. Okay, well. It didn't know the other the other pod, the one that was supposed to go to Earth, hit some debris on the way to Earth and is knocked out of its trajectory to Earth. Okay, because the debris from all the, you know, what was going on with the ISS, I guess. So one astronaut is unable to get the thing back, so now they're heading out into deep space, and inside the other capsule with Calvin attacking the astronaut and forcing him to steer the damn thing towards Earth. Okay, practically breaking his damn arm to do it. That one goes into Earth's atmosphere, and the other one, so what happened was exactly the opposite. All right, so Calvin ends up back on Earth. The other one is hopelessly forever heading away from Earth, so Calvin's pod lands in the ocean near Vietnam and is picked up by fishermen out there who didn't expect it to come down at all. And they find the astronaut inside with the alien. You know, he's screaming at them not to open the hatch because it's in there, but they can't hear him, obviously, because it's inside of a can't hear him. So they're trying to open the door. They figure they're trying to save this guy from suffocating inside of this thing. And they open the door, and basically that's where the movie ends. I mean, that's the end, you know. So now everything, all what they tried to accomplish was for nothing. So, excuse me. Anyway, that was the movie, and if it sounded a little bit like the movie Alien, you're right, because it did have a lot of parallels to it, which I think is probably one reason why it didn't do so well in the theater, because a lot of people thought it was a rip-off of Alien. Because, you know, even in Alien, they had just this one alien, and they had, what, 6, 7 crew members, and it just picked these people off one by one while they were trying to get away. Same kind of scenario, basically, just, you know, same plot. So it was a very derivative of that. But it was well acted. I mean, I have to say, I mean, the movie was well acted, even though there was some plot holes in the story itself and confusions. They did have a good cast of actors in it. And to save it, I guess, to have that sort of a twist ending where you thought there was going to be a conclusion, like, you know, the good save the day. Well, it didn't happen that way. I mean, because that was like the one difference between that and Alien, was that Alien, Ripley gets away and the alien gets, you know, blasted out into space. Well, that didn't happen this time. So that was one saving thing of it. The other was that they pulled what they had done once with the movie Psycho. They got like a really famous leading actress to sacrifice for the very beginning of the film to surprise the audience. Well, they didn't get somebody as popular as you know, but they did get Ryan Reynolds to be the sacrificial lamb at the beginning of the film. Nobody would think that he would be the one to get offed, right? Probably. So they have him in there, and he's killed off as one of the first people to be killed by this alien, which was a shocker. So I don't know how much of an impact that had at the time, because even back then Ryan Reynolds to me wasn't like that big of a fucking star. So I mean, if he was sacrificed in the movie, it wouldn't have been no shock to me. It would have been if say they got Harrison Ford in there, you know, and they killed him off in the first 15 minutes of the film, you know, I mean, that would be a shocker, right? But it certainly would have drew more of an audience, I think, than Ryan Reynolds' name being in it, which I think is probably what hurt the film, was the fact that, you know, hey, they didn't have any really big name actors in it, but, you know, the one big name, I guess what they thought was a big name at the time, Ryan Reynolds, they thought would draw the audience, and I don't think it really did, because I don't think Ryan Reynolds was really that popular even then, even though he was doing these superhero things and shit, you know, with the Deadpool and all that. You know, I just, you know, so, but, you know, the movie was taken seriously, and it had a lot of drama in it. The alien looked cool that was in it. Certainly has, you know, it certainly sends a chill up your spine a little bit, you know, to see it doing the things that it does, you know, especially going into people's bodies and eating out their insides, and you know, being really kind of, you know, violent. I mean, you know, even in the movie Alien, I mean, some of the things in the movie Alien weren't, like you say, as gruesome. I mean, even though getting teeth punched into your head, you know what I'm saying? But this one's different. I mean, getting crushed and everything. I mean, you know, like what happened. I mean, it's really, really, I don't know. You'd have to see it. It's some of the scenes stick in your mind a little bit, you know. But it's really good to watch. I mean, I liked watching it. I mean, it might not have got a big score or something like that, but it is worth watching if you like science fiction horror. And like I said, I got the wind of this when I was watching the other movie, ISS, which I'll probably talk about that another time. But it's certainly not a movie that I would want anybody on the ISS station watching, especially the other one that I watched too. I mean, those are two movies that it's like, you know what, maybe you guys shouldn't play this up there for them, because that might give them some nightmares, you know, while they're up there. I mean, I don't know how fortified they are mentally for things like that, but, you know, if they're up there watching Netflix and stuff like that, or you know, getting, you know, streaming services or whatever, like what I got, You know, maybe you ought to tell them, look, hey, maybe you guys don't want to watch that because it's probably going to give you some you know, bad vibes. We don't want you guys to worry about things like that up there. But I think, you know, it's a good film, you know, and you know, you can't help but you know, think about things, you know, like, because I once in a while, you know, think about, you know, what do these people do up there, you know, when they studying stuff? I mean, what are they just studying Earth things, or are they studying stuff from space? I mean, what are they really doing up there? You know, you try to figure out, you know, how they can live in these tight quarters and stuff like that up there. Because, you know, we like to think that the station is big, but I don't really think it's as big as we think it is. I think it's, you know, it's the rooms are more confined, you know, and which is why I think they ought to take, you know, things like that and move that onto like a base on the moon or something where they can actually spread out more, you know, because you can just start digging underground basically, and it's a much easier way of, you know, pushing your walls out, you know, and you got all kinds of area before you know it. I mean, you got enough room there for a fucking football stadium or something, you know. And it's just, you know, I feel like that's where they ought to do with it. I mean, you know, bringing sections up there at a time, attach this, attach that, you know, Christ, it's going to look like Legos up there after a while. So, I mean, to me, it doesn't seem to make much sense. I mean, it's a good spot, you know, for a midway point between Earth and the moon, but I don't think that it's really it should be intended to be used as something, you know, that people should just keep going to do research, because something like that is eventually not going to, you know, stay up there forever. So, but at least on the moon or something like that, you know, you can always add and, you know, and continue to add as needed, you know. So, yeah, to recommend it, I mean, I give the movie a B-, okay, or maybe a C+. I don't know. It's in that ballpark. It's not great, but it ain't bad, you know. It's sort of like, you know, a Godzilla film from, you know, the 70s. You know, it's entertaining to watch, but it's not too deep as far as the specifics and the details and the science and all that goes. But it is entertaining, just like Alien was, you know. But Alien was a little better of a film, I think, than that one. So if you got time to watch it, you know, at least watch it once. You know, you can't say you didn't see it. And hopefully you'll like it. Maybe you'll like it better than I did. I don't know. So anyway, that's my opinion of the movie Life from 2017. So I hope everyone has a great rest of the week. So take care, everyone. Bye.